好奇心旺盛なお前のことだ。一度でも手を出したら墓荒らしくらいする。絶対に一線を越えるな。
はい。もし私を処刑する場合、毒殺にしていただ
What
けま
the
せんか？
なんで
What?
そうなる？
Yeah, where'd that come from? Grief is this experience of sadness over someone's loss or someone's death. But grief is not only experienced when someone dies. End of a relationship, a breakup, best friendships fallout, and so on. Any end of a relationship, death, or just a separation can cause grief. And its grief is a universal experience. Hello friends, my name is Benoit Kim, a UPenn educated psychotherapist and your favorite yapper. Welcome to my detailed psychological analysis of the Apothecary Diaries episode 9. I have been recording Bochi the Rock series back to back, so I'm very much excited to witness Mamao's savagery and drink some more of her Kool-Aid because she can just do it all. Assassination Zero, Vinny, Greg Bogue, Foxlows Gaming, Crisco94, Jen Negre, and Wu Xiyang are the sponsor tier highlights of today's video. I appreciate your support. Shout out to the growing patron and YouTube membership families. Sit back and I hope you enjoy. Big cafeteria. Wow. There's a lot of alcohol. Yo, so much wasted.
随分と変わっちまって。しかしあの顔を見ていると酒がまずくなる。それは同感だ。
What is that? Yo, so we saw that this unknown person put some sort of looks like sugar cubes, but probably not. Put some unknown substances into that jar of drinks and gave it to this old man. I'm guessing this person probably poisons the alcohol to kill this person. I'm guessing this old person plays an important role in this episode. That old guy's dead. Calling it.
仕事中だということを忘れないでください。分かってるよ。
I'm guessing Master Jingxi is also sulking about Mama leaving the palace with the military officer for the homecoming episode. And a fun fact, so he just hit me now. So Jingxi, Master Jingxi's name, has double meaning. Yes, it's his name, Jingxi, but Jingshi, it's actually another pronunciation. Jingshi is actually individuals who take like a national exams back in the ancient Chinese dynasty times, and they get upranked into like scholars. It's like a scholarly rank, and they eventually can become one of the high-ranking officers and so on. So Jingshi is where usually a lot of like number 1, number 2 scholars in the nation in China gets picked after becoming first or second ranked test takers based on their Jingshi test in China. So I think Jingshi is a double meaning, just like a Hongyang. Remember the head, lady in waiting for a lady Ryukyu, right? It's not just her name, but Hongyang is lady in red. It's also the title bestowed upon the highest ranking lady in rating. That's why Hongyang, same thing as lady in red. So it's a double meaning. Same for here. Jingshi or Jingxi is also double meaning for the number 1 scholar who get tested into the palace, but also master's name.
人種という人物はそのような子供みたいな返事はしない。しない。新しい仕事です。
So I've also talked about how Jingxi, I'm gonna call him Jingxi because I don't know if that title Jingshi is who he is or Jingxi just going who he's going by. So I'm just gonna call him with the Americanized pronunciation. So Master Jingxi is sulking again, obviously because of Mao Mao, and obviously the guy was saying that he doesn't get it. And I've talked about this numerous times. Jingxi is extremely intelligent. His logical skills, his deduction skills are exceptional. We've already established that, so we won't go much into it now. But no matter how smart we are, no matter how intelligent we are, no matter how logical we are, emotions are extremely powerful, right? How many of us can relate, right? No matter how capable we are or someone that we know of are super smart, but in light of relationship problems We all get mad, we get reactive, we have disproportionate responses, and we are not our best versions. We are not our best selves because of the power of emotions. And one thing I also want to highlight is countless people, audience, commented that they believe, they're headcanoning, a term I learned, they predict or they think that Mao Mao is autistic. Let me explain this right now. I'm 9 episodes in, as you guys see, and there's not enough autistic traits displayed by Mao Mao. And I'm a clinician. I do this for full-time living, and I have extremely good grasp over DSM-5. Diagnostic Statistical Manual 5, definition right here. Of course, DSM-5 is not perfect, but it is the consolidated, like the Bible, so to speak, that many clinicians utilize. And it takes at least 3 to 6 months of clinical data and consistent clinical observation to provide any diagnosis, and only psychologists and often medical doctors can provide diagnosis for autism. But here are some of the criteria for autism, just to put this to rest. And of course, in the future, Mao Mao may display autistic traits, but as of right now, there's not sufficient data, period. So here are some of the most prevalent and hallmarks of autism, or ASD, definition. Autistic spectrum disorder. Number one hallmark is a lack of social reciprocity. They struggle with social interactions. It's hard for them to have a back and forth conversations. It's hard for them to play with other children or play with other people because they don't reciprocate. So there's a struggle and a deficiency in social reciprocity. That's number one. Number two, they have to have some sort of a repeated behavior. Repeated stereotypical behavior, it's what it's called. Definition right here. That means they do a lot of like hand slapping, right? They like to repeat the same word, like cloud, cloud, cloud. Repeated stereotypical behaviors, either through speech or behavior like hand clapping, like I talked about, right? They also have some sort of a hyperfixation. Number three, definition right here. They're extremely hyperfixated at something. It's hard for them to move on until this one thing is resolved, I guess. So they're very fixated and stuck in one thing. So those three are some of the most hallmark traits of people with autism. And there's about 9 other criteria. So even just based on those 3 biggest traits alone, Mao Mao doesn't check any of that. Yes, Mao Mao is extremely smart. Yes, she's obsessed and dedicated with apothecary duties, poison, drugs, but it's hard to say that she's hyperfixated. We don't see any speech poverty. We don't see any stereotypical repeated patterns based on Mao Mao. We don't see any deficiency in social reciprocity. Mao Mao has one great friend. She's not socially struggling, right? She can talk to anyone. She's not shy. We don't see her struggling socially. Yes, she doesn't really care about most social things. She doesn't care about the drama, the rumors, but she does not struggle whenever she's talking to Master Jingxi, her good friends, any of the concubines. And yes, I know it's concubines, but I've pronounced as concubines from so on. And someone's like, every time I talk about concubines, they think about porcupines. So yes, concubines. I'll be correcting my pronunciation. So far, put that to rest. As of right now, until further data and clinical information is revealed, Mao Mao does not display autistic traits or autism.
あの日、笑い転げる玉葉妃から事の詳細を聞くのに苦労したこん 笑いって恐ろしい
Youth.
いざ会いに行ってみる知らぬ男と
That's true.
栄転の霹靂には違いある
That's true. So this begs another important psychological concept that we call expectation management. Definition right here. Life is about managing our expectations. How many of us can relate that when we uphold certain expectations about a certain outcome, but then when the reality hits and that's not what the expectation is, we all of us, we've seen memes, right? Expectations versus reality on Instagram and so on. But it's much more than that. It's a lot deeper than that. When we have distorted or skewed or biased expectations, because like I talked about throughout, our perception is not reality. Our perceptions is often distorted by our feelings on the moment, our upbringing, our personalities, and reality is reality. What we feel on the inside almost always get projected onto the outside, unless you're extremely self-aware. That's why self-awareness is a key pillar for psychotherapeutic work. So, case in point here, right? It's very different. That's why we cannot always go based off of what we believe, what we expect, and hope that it happens. And there's another famous quote that I love. Expectation is a thief of happiness. Whatever we expect to get, it will rob us of our joy because it takes us away from the reality of what is versus what we think it should be. But what do you mean it should be? We're not gods. We don't get to bend life to our control. We don't get to influence life the way we want it to happen. Life is life. Life is gonna life, regardless how we feel. So we need to learn how to manage our expectations, just like we need to learn to manage our distress, manage our stresses, manage our struggle. We need to vent. We need to use our different coping skills. We need to have a very solid group of community members that can support us and vice versa. We need to learn to manage our stresses, manage our expectations, because we're not going to be able to eradicate suffering or eradicate or influence life the way we want them to be. So that's why Master Jinshi is struggling here, because he expected to, boom, finish all my work early, computer ChatGPT mode activated, just to get there to see Mao Mao, and she was gone. She left the rear palace with another male, with another military officer. Expectation versus reality. Let's manage our expectations and let's learn to respect life for what it is. We cannot control life, but we can, however, control how we respond to life. Full stop. That's also the thesis of a Stoicism.
もう少し頭をひねればよいもの。多くの官僚は自分の利益につながる法案を通そうとする。そんなくだらない法案のために仕事が増えるのは哀れに思う。
Hold on. So Master Jinshi is approving bills and reviewing bills, just like Congress and presidents of the present time. I thought he was the manager of the rear palace. And I know Mao Mao said in passing that he must be more powerful than the matrons of the real palace because of how much freedom he has. He has access to different concubines, pavilions and so on. But even if he's the most powerful person in the rear palace, obviously besides the emperor, why is he reviewing the bills by different bureaucrats? In other words, other officers. Who is Master Jinshi, dude? And one thing is, guys, I understand many of you guys are watching extremely passionate, very excited about the show, and the fandom for Apothecaries is very strong. Amazing, because this is an amazing show. Mao Mao is one of my favorites female protagonists and female leads to date, for sure. At the same time, please avoid spoilers. Let me get to conclusions by myself based on my predictions and deductions. Please avoid spoilers. I will be not only filtering, but I will be deleting comments and even blocking users if I see the same recurring users spoiling on and on again, right? So please avoid spoilers for everyone's sake. Anyway, who is Master Jinshi, right? Do not spoil. I'm just thinking out loud.
もう時間外だ。後にしてくれないか。
仕事の
Someone
ことでは
died.
なく
Yep, that old dude died.
それが
They discover his dead body.
後年殿が
ジン様。
行くぞ。
お偉いさんが死んじまいましたとさ。
Hi
冷
up.
たいようだが。年齢は急じを過ぎ、死因といえば酒の飲みすぎ。完全に自業自得だ。
So quick comments. So one thing I do want to talk about is, and yes, many people pointed this out in the series so far. Many people, with all spoilers, did encourage me to think more about Mao Mao's background, right? Let's do a quick recap of the circumstances and context been known to us about Mao Mao. Mao Mao was raised in brothel. In many cases, many of the courtesans and many people from brothel helped raise Mao Mao. That's why they taught her that sizable fruit technique, which she told Lady Li Hua, which allowed Lady Li Hua to regain the favor of the emperor, right? So Mao Mao grew up in that district. And obviously brothel is usually in red light district, and red light district or entertainment district is usually poverty driven, a lot of risk and dangers, and right, it's not a nice neighborhood for sure. Second thing, she was raised by a single father who I talked about, who looks like Mr. Miyagi without the beard and mustache, the white hair, wise looking, Confucius looking dude. So she was raised by a single parent's household, which is another ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So those two situations alone already qualify as Mao Mao for a lot of trauma, period. And think about her lack of interest, and I talked about her trauma responses, her flat affect, her lack of interest in a lot of things throughout, aside from her being a survival mode. But in this case, though, based on the quick recap of her circumstances, right? Yes, she's very sharp. She's very smart. She's very analytical. She's very scientific. She's very capable. But none of her strength and characteristics dismiss her traumatic upbringing. Full stop. So here we see that once again. Mao Mao is very desensitized. Definition right here. We, just like in the current modern sense, many of us have experienced so many tragedies and death and shootings and murders on the news. So when we see another news of someone dying, we don't really have a big response. We're like, oh, that's too bad. And then we move on. Because everyone is busy living their lives. Everyone is surviving, so to speak. And that's for sure. But at the same time, that is the perils of mainstream media. Because everything is breaking news. Everything is about sensationalizing. Everything's about making profit off of the tragedies of others. In other words, mainstream medias are making fortunes out of other people's misfortunes. And because of the headline culture and sensationalism, we have become desensitized to the misfortunes and tragedies of other people. Because we don't know them at the end of the day. And all of us are dealing with our own tragedies and our own circumstances. So it's neither here nor there. But that's what Mao Mao is doing or saying. She's desensitized, and it's hard for her to sympathize with this upper person who died, because she was like, he's older than 50 years old and probably drank too much and clearly self-inflicted. It is premature judgments. Mao Mao is making prejudgments, which is what her father taught her not to do. Do not speak up without enough proof, right? But another context, because it is valid, in the ancient times, in Chinese dynasty eras, for people to live past 50 is extremely rare. Most children never live past 2 years old because of many of them will ingest like fecal matters and water. The water supply was not good. Sanitary measures were not established. Infrastructures were very poor. So for someone to live past 50 years old in this dynasty era setting, first of all, is rare. And they must be very affluent and highly ranked, which this guy was, right? So Mao Mao is not entirely wrong, but we shall see why what comes up in this episode. But I do want to talk about Mao Mao's desensitization. She is desensitized to other people's suffering because yes, one, she doesn't know him, but two, I think it's another reflection of her own traumatic upbringing. And I'm sure, although Mao Mao doesn't talk about it exclusively or explicitly rather, I'm sure she represents and she's seen and witnessed so many tragedies, so many deaths in the entertainment district when she grew up, right? Just like when she told Master Jinshi, when he gave her a hairpin about why she started using freckles, because she doesn't want to get dragged into the alleyway and get raped. But she said that very nonchalantly because that's the amount of trauma she represents and she carries.
ということは
薬屋、本当に死因は酒だと思うか？
やっぱり聞いてきた。
Whoa! It's as if Master Jinshi can read Mao Mao's mind. But of course, mind reading is not real. But again, case in point, Master Jinshi's deduction skills are exceptional at the same time. Everyone in this room recognizes Mao Mao's exceptional intelligence and who she is, and she's much more beyond just an apothecary. She's like an advisor, a confidant. a very intellectual scientist and a scholar, and almost a detective.
酒好きの人間なら飲みすぎは毒であると分かっているはずです。
True?
慢性的に飲み続ければ臓腑を病ませ、
True?
一度に大量摂取すれば死に至る場合もあります。
Quick fun fact, alcohol is one of the two substances can kill you with withdrawal. One is opioids withdrawal, right? You can die from withdrawing from opiates. That's why you need to enter a medical, like a medical detox or like hospital setting. So you can detox through medical safeties. The second one is alcohol. You can die from withdrawing from alcohol. It's that powerful of a poison and drug, just like opioids.
で大量の酒を煽ったと聞いている。
それなら死にますね。
だが後年殿は酒に強い。飲みすぎで
High
死んだとは
tolerance.
思え。
True. Tolerance.
死んだ男の名は後年。
Conan.
酒を亀ごと飲み干す豪快な武人で人柄も良かったという。
ガオシュ。
はい。
宴席で飲まれていた酒の残りだ。
Hmm?
おお、酒。
後年殿が飲んでいたものは亀がひっくり返って全部流れてしまった。
では、その亀に毒が入っていたら分かりませんね。
True.
その通りだ。
So another scientific measurement they're using right here is we call separating the independent variable from the dependent variable. Definition right here. Independent variable and dependent variable. What that means is independent variable is what we look for or what we use in a control study, in a scientific peer review studies, is whatever variable is not influenced by anything else is the independent variable. And dependent variable is whatever is dependent on the independent variable gets influenced by it, right? So in this case, Sir Conan died, right? So that's the dependent variable because Sir Conan died based on the alcohol / poison, which is the independent variable. Every control study, scientific review, we have to parse, we have to separate what is the independent variable and what is the dependent variable. In other words, what is a correlation? What is a causation? That's what they're doing right here, trying to figure out, the alcohol, the poison, and so on.
しおろし、無茶なことを言っているのは承知の上か。いつも通り無駄にキラキラしてればいいのに。
Excessively
こ
shiny.
こ最近の人士様は以前よりもずっと子供のように見えて仕方ない。
For a while, Master Jinshi appeared to be much more childish than before. Mama doesn't get it. He was acting that way because he was over the moon. And he was low-key infatuated and obsessed over Mama. Like what I talked about earlier, our emotions are so powerful. It will influence and impact our ability to be logical. Remember I said, humans are social, emotional animals first and foremost. So Master Jinshi, is of course the same.
甘さとしょっぱさが混在している。
Sweet and
もと
salty.
もと甘みのある酒に塩味をつけているような。
後年殿の好みなんだ。
Oh.
大の甘党でいくら上等の燻製肉や岩塩を用意しても手をつけない人だった。
Interesting.
昔は辛いもの好きだったが、ある日突然甘党になったと言っていた。 食事もほとんど甘味にするくらいに。
糖尿に。
We see that Master Jinshi, listen to Master Jinshi's voice. Listen to his tonality and his tonation. He sounds more somber, more sobering, right? That's pun intended. It sounds deeper, it's lower. I think Master Jinshi is grieving. That's a display of grief. Definition right here. Grief is this experience of sadness over someone's loss or someone's death. But grief is not only experienced when someone dies. End of a relationship, a breakup, best friendships fallout, and so on. Any end of a relationship, death, or just a separation can cause grief. And its grief is a universal experience. Not just for humans, even animals experience grief. If you guys are pet parents, have cats or dogs, you guys know that even dogs and cats, and again, elephants, pigs, cows, literally mammals and animals experience grief, period. So grief is one of the most ubiquitous and powerful emotion experienced by sentient beings. So I think Master Jinshi sounds very low because he's grieving. Sounds like he respected the Sir Conan. He knew of him for many, many years, right? So that's the reason why he sounds more sober, more sombering, more low.
なりますね。
思い出話を現実に戻す。まだ飲む気か。
辛いもの好きが甘党にね。
She is straight up drinking on the job.
出ましたか？
ああ、岩塩と月餅と干し肉が出たそうだ。同じものを用意するか？
いえ、その前に飲み終わりますので。
そういう意味。
光年様の飲んでいた亀は手に入りますか？
割れて破片になっているが。
構わないです。
There will be residues. There will be residues even in the shattered pieces.
それと一つ調べてもらいたいことがあります。
報告書です。
ありがとうございます。
What's the report?
やっぱり
Autopsy report?
酒瓶だ。
Residues. Bro, Mamo just. Ugh. I get it, Mamo. You've developed some sort of a tolerance against poisons, although many people argue it's a myth, it's not scientifically verified. I can't verify, although we can develop tolerance towards certain substances over repeated exposure, right? But regardless, Mamo, what a reckless behavior, dude. Like, low key, I remember I talked about nihilism in episode 1. Nihilism means you believe that life has lost its meaning. But nihilism is not necessarily synonymous with thoughts. It's not the same, right? But we've seen Mao Mao displaying disregard over her life many, many times. All the scars and wounds she has on herself based on trying different poisons, her reckless behaviors, although she trusts in her ability to be tolerant or immune or resistant towards poison, her disregard for her life by ingesting poisons, right? All these self-experimentations, we can view that behavior as disregard towards one's own life, right? So I think that's another display of some nihilistic traits by Mao Mao. Of course, nihilism is not clinical. It's more of a philosophical thing. But still here, Mao Mao, like, come on, man.
これに毒はありません。
Huh? She knew right away. Mao Mao can do it all, huh? Wow.
人士様、言いましたよね。しかし、酒瓶には乾いて粒が残るほどのたくさんの塩が含まれていた。
Interesting. Because it crystallizes.
飲んだ
Dehydration.
酒の量と溶け込んだ塩の量を考えれば、
Dehydration.
これが原因であってもおかしくはないでしょう。
いや、だが、それだ。
これを見てください。
The person did add sugar cubes.
光年様の生活習慣について書かれています。
Interesting.
目で有能な官僚でストイックな性格だったようだ。そしてずいぶん前に妻と子を流行り病で亡くした。
I see.
それからは仕事一筋。 原因は食の偏りやストレス。真面目な人間ほど心を抑制し、その負荷は病へ変わってしまう。
Some people will repress, right, their stress, and that stress can convert into an illness. It's actually a psychological diagnosis. We call that conversion disorder. Definition right here. Conversion disorder is when our psychological stress gets converted into physical illness, right? So it's called conversion disorder. Sounds like Sir Conan had conversion disorder. His prolonged grief, his sadness, his nihilism, his loss of interest in life when he lost his wife and his child over an epidemic. So he channeled all his dedications and life's purpose to work, alcohol, and sweets. So that's why he became an alcoholic, because alcohol for him was his primary way of coping to manage stresses. Right? Of course, it's toxic and unhealthy, 100%. Addiction is not the best way to deal with our stresses and life issues, right? Who am I to judge? Because I can't even fathom what it feels like, the devastation of losing a wife and her children, right? I can't even imagine that. But it makes sense that because of those tragedies, Sir Conan developed conversion disorder, and then also subsequently lost his ability to sense salt or saltiness. That's why the other person in the beginning, the culprit, the assassin, with that murderous intent that I talked about, dropped a lot of things. So those were not sugar cubes. Those were not poison, but it was a lot of rock salt that became poisonous. Because I'm sure that plus drinking causes extreme dehydration. And of course, it can kill you.
一体誰が酒瓶に塩を入れたのだ。
それを調べるのは私の仕事ではありません。
She's like, I'm out.
昨日いただいた酒にも塩は含まれていました。甘口の酒が口に合わない人間が魚に出た塩を入れたか、あるいは真面目な人間をけ。
Possibilities.
なのに相手が平気な顔で飲み続けるので、気づくまで加えてやろうと思うかもしれない。
We know that's not the case because we as the audience outside of this 4D dimension wall know that it's one person who dumped like a handful of massive rock salts. So we know that's not the case. But of course, this also could have happened unknown to us, plus the culprit, the assassin adding the final straw, bunch of them to cause that dehydration assassination attempt.
ここまできっかけを与えたなら犯人を教えたも同然なのに、私は誰かが罰せられる直接の原因になりたくない。
Interesting.
すまなかったな。
Quick question, since this is not spoilers related, why do you think Mao Mao is doing that? Why do you think Mao Mao is providing so many hints without actually, pointing at culprits? Because I know she said because I don't want to be directly responsible for someone getting punished. What do you guys think that is? Is that because of her empathy? Is it because she's looking out for other people that is in a lower position versus like this bureaucracy, this hierarchy, the social caste differences? Or do you think she's just so jaded, so desensitized that she just does not have any more capacity, emotional capacity, or as I like to call it, emotional jar or empathy jar, since everyone has a finite amount of empathy and compassion we can give day to day. That's why if we give away too much empathy, if we empathize and even sympathize and we resonate with someone for too much, like me, one of my professional hazard is because I dish out and I'm empathizing with my clients all day, every day with trauma, PTSD, suicidal stuff, right? When I come home, I'm drained. So I'm not always being able to listen and hold space for my wife. I cannot always be as empathetic as I would like to because of my professional hazard. Because I'm dealing with such a distraught situations and so much trauma every single day in my clinic, right? So everyone has a finite amount of empathy jar and even emotional battery. When your emotional battery gets drained to 0% or even sub threshold amount, you get extremely fatigued. You get very tired. You get very drained. So I think that's what Mao Mao's representing. That because she went through so much trauma in her life, she's witnessed so much tragedy. Yes, she's desensitized, but I think her empathy and emotional jar is running low. That's why she doesn't want to take on more burden of being responsible for someone being punished. I know I answered my own questions, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Why do you think she's doing this?
黒曜石の房飾り、何服しているのか。
He's mourning.
そんなに立派な方だったのですか。
ああ、小さい頃世話になった。
Aww. Ah, he's like a respected elder for Master Jinshi.
人間なんだな。
Aww.
そうだ、
え、
例だ。
ひょうたん。
ああ、昨日のものとは違うが、バレ
Sake?
ないように飲めよ。
ありがとうございます。
Sake, I'm dead. Oh.
お仕事なさってください。この反応はサボってるな。飲み込まないうちに終わる。
こんな法案があったな。年若い者が酒に溺れるのを防ぐために年齢制限をつけるべきだと。
Wow.
人士様
So Mama can't drink.
それ絶対に通さないでください
I know many people said Mama's about age 17 or 18 at this time, right? Again, it's not that big of a deal. But what matters is if that bill were to be passed and approved and reviewed by Master Jinshi, then Mama can't drink in the open. They will enter like a prohibition period, just like in the United States, right? So again, my question remains, who is Master Jinshi and how is he responsible for such an important task of reviewing and passing bills?
さあ、私の一存では何もできない。
人士様
Water? Oh! Who is that? Someone's drowning? More death? What is... Oh, jeez. Dude, this show has the craziest foreshadowing cliffhangers. What the heck's going on? Was that the person that... Was that the culprit? That's drowning? Was that a... to cover up their tracks? Or did someone kill the assassin once again to cover up other long trails of tracks? And I'm pretty sure this is part of the covert operation. I feel like this assassination covert operation that's ongoing, yes, it's an ongoing theme, an ongoing murder mystery. But most importantly, I think whoever the mastermind behind this covert operation is trying to take out high-ranking officers one by one to derail and destabilize this dynasty and the emperor's rule, not against the emperor personally, but just against the governance, the governing body. I feel like all these covert operations is all connected. It's like an invisible spider web that's trying to take down this government. Fascinating. Another death. I'm gonna call it. I fucking called it, dude. What did I say? So the title was called Murder or... I'm getting hyped. Whew. The title was called Murder or Homicide. Plot twist, it's both. The first assassination of Sir Conan was a murder. And I think the second death of that person drowning is to cover up the tracks. Right? In Chinese, it's called 死事. 死事, right? It's the same, I guess the second word as 经事, like 经事. 事 is like a person, an individual, a personnel. 事 and 死 means death. 死事 is a subgroup of people back in the dynasty times who are like martyrs. They carry out assassinations tasks and they kill themselves, right, to cover up their tracks. They're called 死事. A lot of high-ranking officers and a lot of people back then, they're not going to attempt assassinations themselves. So they would hire and send out these 死事, right, personnels who carry out assassin attempts and who commit to cover up the tracks. Bro, you're palace physicians. How are you going to be scared of dead bodies? Preservation.
割には綺麗な姿です
It's a female?
その堀に浮いていた。
Or is this another
高
murder?
級の下女に間違いない。
検視すべき医者がこれとは全くもってやぶである
Bro.
代わりに見てくれないか。
ダ
Bro.
メです死体には触るなと言われているので
それは意外なことだな。
人士様。
ごきげんよう人士様
死体は見慣れているようだが。
慣れた光景です
I've gotten used to them. The Pleasure District is just one street away from lawless chaos. I love that the show and the writers is so good at portraying Mao Mao's countless complex trauma growing up without explicitly telling the viewers, but in passing. The things that Mao Mao say in passing, seemingly innocuous, seemingly innocent, nonchalant comments, depict so much trauma. She says, I'm used to it. She's desensitized, like I talked about earlier, with tragedies, death, murders, and in this case, corpses, because she's seen so many death in her life. Mao Mao, I feel your pain. I feel for you. And I hope you can acknowledge your own trauma and process. I hope you can one day emotionally process your own trauma because you deserve to not live in this desensitized psychological state forever. Because that in itself, chronic prolonged desensitizational state in itself is a trauma response.
町は一歩裏に入れば無法地帯ですから。
死体に触れられないのはなぜだ？
薬の師匠に言われているからです。
意味を嫌うからか？
いえ、人間も薬の材料になるからです。
好奇心旺盛なお前のことだ。一度でも手を出したら墓嵐くらいする。絶対に一線を越えるな。
はい。
なるほど。
失礼な反応だ。
先生、ちゃんと見てもらえないだろうか。
背が高い、硬い木の靴、片足には包帯、指先は真っ赤。
Who is she?
水の中は冷たかっただろうな。
It is winter. See, in light of a corpse, in light of a dead body, what is Mama thinking about? She's analyzing once again. She's entered her detective/analysis mode, right? She's analyzing all the states of the corpse, right? She's almost doing like an autopsy examination because the quack doctor is too scared. Although, bro, you're the palace physician. Come on, man.
娘は小食の下女で、昨日まで普通に働いていた。衛兵の見解では昨夜塀に登り、
投身自殺。
Those two deaths are definitely related.
自殺かどうかは分かりませんが、少なくとも一人では無理だと思います。
どういうことだ？
壁にはしごは。
Wow.
ほどあります。
道具がないと無理というわけか。
大抵の場合は。騒ぎは覚えていますか？
不要費の件か。
はい。どうやって不要費が外壁に登ったのか疑問で、城壁を丹念に調べて回りました。
Wow. Her Mama's exceptional intellectual curiosity shows up once again. Even for things that she's not responsible for, she's still very curious, and she has to follow her curiosity, right? And you guys might be like, "See, Benoit, I told you that's an autistic trait. That's hyperfixation." Not quite. Hyperfixation is sure obsession, curiosity, passion, hyperfixation. It can get loosely, but I still think it's sub-threshold. It does not quite cross the threshold of autistic display of hyperfixation, but we shall see.
すべての女性に行われるわけではないが、高級でも特有の歩き方をたまに見かける。
Potential murder.
生きたまま堀の中に落ちたのは確かだと思います。這い上がるために何度も堀をかいたのでしょう。
Oh, dang. Most likely a murder.
自殺か他殺か。死んでしまえば薬も毒も試せない。
What? Mama doesn't care to stay living, not for the sacredness of her life, but for the sacredness of her profession, apothecary, and she'll want to test more drugs, do more experimentations. Again, this is another direct portrayal of her nihilism. 100%. If she were to die, no more
今考
suffering.
えている。
死ぬならどんな毒にしようかと。
死ぬ気か。
What?
そうもありません。
Man.
たとえ望まなくとも他人の悪意が加わることで不本意な死を遂げることがあります。
Like with murders?
訪れるのか誰にもわからない。
This is as nihilistic as he gets, right? Like it's confirmed. Mama definitely has nihilism. She definitely has nihilistic traits, 100%.
抗うことはできない。
No way to resist fate. That reminds me another famous saying by a famous German philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the person, or I guess, responsible for nihilism. Although Friedrich Nietzsche was much more than just being a nihilist, but his famous saying is amor fati, right here, definition right here. Amor fati. Amor means love. Fati means fate. It means lover of fate. Amor fati, it also means accept your fate. It is what it is. That's what Mama is displaying. Amor fati and nihilism. Very sombering music backgrounds. Very serious. This is a very philosophical conversations, existential conversations about life and death. Whoa. Interesting internal reality happening. Wow, this is deep. Wow, all these death, all these murders attempts. And some viewers also suggested that even the writer said that Mao Mao is not a reliable narrator. And I see that. I think because this show is called, what is this show called? The Apothecary Diaries. What are diaries? It's a writing of our self-reported narratives. It's a collections of writings, like diaries, based on our own recollection of what happens to our lives, what we go through. So of course it's distorted, it's biased, and it's not objective. It's not factual. So I agree that Mao Mao is not a reliable narrator, but it's not just Mao Mao. All of us are not reliable narrators of our own life because we add our own flavors, our own distortions, our own influences, our own emotions, our own biases. Full stop. But I think in this scene, with this sombering background music, this red, darker portrayal of this animation style, I think this is actually an accurate portrayal of what Mao Mao's experienced so far. All those attempts, poison attempts, we saw that Mao Mao actually being kind of scared of poison tasting, even though what we saw, she was unfazed and she was excited. But of course, as a poison taster, there always is a probability of you dying of poison. And yes, Mao Mao said she is resistant and even immune to most poisons. But the word most statistically is 51%. It's majority. Because more than 50% is the majority. 50% is half. So 51% crosses the threshold of most or majority. So that means there's at least conservatively about 49% of poisons that Mao Mao is not immune to or even resistant to. So obviously this is not a statistical course. It's oversimplified. I get it. But give or take, there's still a good chance of 40% or so that Mao Mao still could die. And Mao Mao knows that. She's very self-aware. She's very analytical. She's very scientific. So I think this is an actual more accurate portrayal without Mao Mao's own diaries, without Mao Mao's own recollections about life and death and the uncertainty of life and how anyone can die at any moment, either accidentally or by the malicious intent of a third party. This is a very, very deep scene. Very, very deep. Very unexpected. I did not expect this. Wow. This is why so many viewers, or I guess, so many viewers for my Apothecary episode 1 reaction, when I was like, after finishing Taco P's Original Sin series, which is extremely powerful yet dark, I was like, finally, some switch of pace, such an uppity, cheerful, exciting, hilarious show. And many of them are like, we shall see, Benoit. You really think this is funny? We will see.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
I see what you guys mean. Yeah, this is a dark show, but it's more subtle. It's more implicit. You have to read between the lines. It is, this is not a comedy show for sure. It is about life and death. It is very sombering, very deep.
ジンシ様。もし私を処刑する場合、毒殺にしていただけませんか？
なんでそうなる？
Yeah,
も
where'd
し
that come
私が
from?
何か粗相をした場合、
Whoa, this is deep AF, dude. Wow.
早速粗相をしてしまったのか。すみません。言いません。
What
いや
the?
だからなんでそうなる？
That's not, bro. Mama, that's not the reason why Master Jinshi isn't responding. I think he's feeling you. Like, not feeling you physically, but like he hears the pain in your voice, and I think he's just shocked at your request for being executed by Master Jinshi. Because obviously, Master Jinshi likes Mama a lot, right? I think at this point, there's definitely that romantic interest for sure. They cross that boundaries, right? or not boundaries, cross that threshold of romantic interest. Damn.
そんなことはしない。
するしないではなく、できるできないですから。
Damn.
面倒なことを言ったみたいだな。
Okay, again, I'm just thinking about autism, ASD, because so many of you guys are so certain and headcaning that Mao Mao might have autism. It's still a sub-threshold, right? I still wouldn't say it's an autistic trait, but Mao Mao is very like hyper analytical, and she doesn't quite understand the social nuances and social etiquettes. She doesn't quite, it's hard for her to read social cues, like why Master Jinshi is so struck and why she struck a nerve. It's not because Mao Mao, you stepped over to the boundaries of Master Jinshi. It's because you're talking about your life in such a reckless, careless way. It's your disregard for your own life that is bewildering and shocking to Master Jinshi. And I think that's why Master Jinshi is mad and even frustrated at you, Mao Mao, because of your disregard for your life. It's not because of your trespassing this hierarchy per se, right? And she's so matter of fact. She's so black and white. It's this. She's very objective. Not her self-narration, but just how she viewed things. And I guess if someone with a very, very, very mild, since autism is a spectrum, very mild autistic traits, they can appear in a similar way. But again, there's many, many criteria for autism. And many of us can display autistic traits without meeting the full threshold and criteria for autism spectrum disorder, ASD. So just like many of us have autistic traits without the autism. So maybe Mao Mao display and has some autistic traits without, again, meeting the autism spectrum. Very dark. That was a very sombering conversation. Interesting. I'm sure that was a very meaningful and impactful conversation for Master Jinshi, but I feel like that's also like a foreshadowing or important seed planting for future episodes. It's so different, and it really stands out from every other episode so far in the last 9 episodes thus far.
朝に聞いたのは、死んだ下女が園遊会の毒殺騒ぎの場にいたことだった。それらしい遺書も見つかり、自殺ということで事件は幕を閉じた。
It's definitely covert operation. It's murder. Yep. It's all related. This is all interconnected.
先日の報告がようやく届きました。
腕に火傷を負ったものを探せと言ってから2月も経っている。
Damn, 2 months.
時間のかけすぎだ。
申し訳ありません。
で、一体誰だ？
はい。意外と大物でした。ザクロ級、フォンミン。アード王妃の父親でした。
Whoa! Damn!
そうか。
I got goosebumps. That is really high up. Shit. It's the same ranking as Hongyang, right? Wow. And she found bruises on her arm? Whoa.
アード王妃。
Wow. Wow. Dang. Hey, enough said. Man, this show truly is, I think, a category of one. Again, it has medical knowledge. It has pharmacist knowledge. It has murder mystery. It has detective vibes. It's fascinating. Anyway, as always, if you enjoy my in-depth psychological analysis, because I don't do superficial stuff, right? Smash that thumbs up. I do give my absolute best in every single episode. I'm very passionate about education, psychological analysis. Meanwhile, also enjoying the show because I am an anime lover first and foremost. Double check, are you subscribed? Because you don't want to miss out on my next episode or my next series. And before you go, what's one thing you're taking away from my episode? And I will follow up with more information and more responses. And again, please do not spoil and please avoid spoilers. And as always, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Shout out to the best patron family and YouTube members. Till next time, peace.